All right, guys. So I want to talk about why people are choosing to elect dependency. Before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to my lovely 38 subscribers. Love you guys. Thank y'all for clicking on that subscribe button. Okay, guys. So I want to talk about why we just seem to be hell bent, at least in certain parts of the country, why they seem to be hell bent on voting in dependency. It used to be a time where you wanted to vote in the candidate who promised you the least amount of intervention, the least amount of taxing, the least amount of infringement on your rights. That was the fashionable candidate. But somewhere we took a turn. I want to say it was around 2008, around the hope and change era, where we really started to take government from something that serviced us to something that we became totally dependent on. And I think with that whole Obama era of big government and the Obamacare, the idea that universal health care should be the norm. I mean, if the government's going to take care of your health care, then everything else kind of is minimal after that. A lot of where we are today was the promise that government should take care of your health care, whether you could pay for it or not. Remember the lie that if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor? Even that turned out to be false because government knew it was going to be false because that was a big part of taking over your primary right, your right to your own healthcare decisions. And after that takeover was complete, then they started moving on to climate. They started moving on to all these things that government could do better than us. And America slowly started to become attracted to it. I remember the 2020 campaign, even the 2018 campaigns were all about what government was going to do. Government was going to give, correct the climate. Government was going to take care of everybody's housing. We really started to get more and more entertained by the idea that the government might be the solution to all our problems. And politicians have seized on that. And then social media came along and really, really fed fuel to the fire because people started talking about it. And now here we are, fast forward to this week, where we elect the most unabashed socialist, communist, whatever you want to call it, to ever stake claim on the title. Now, if you've noticed, in its wake, socialism, even up to this point, has done its thing. People who say socialism doesn't work, they're absolutely wrong about that. Socialism definitely works. The problem is the way it works. Socialism is not about the state giving people things. Although that's what people think. They think when they sign up for socialism, it's all about what the government's going to now hand out to them. And that's not what socialism is. Socialism is actually just the opposite. Socialism is about how much you give the government. And they do it by class. So if you notice, they start with the billionaire class. And the idea is to get rid of all the billionaires. You soak them up. It might take a generation, but you eventually burn through all of your billionaires. Then you move down to your millionaires. Once you've exhausted all your millionaires, then you're going to move down to your 100,000aires. And then once you've drained all of them, the process just keeps going to eventually there's no one left to get money from. That's why socialism fails. Successful socialism fails 100% of the time. It's a last ditch effort of a society to hang on. And there's no way America should be in that position where we're dying to hold on by soaking our classes one at a time. But this is what socialism covers up. The fact that it starts from the top and works itself all the way down to the poor classes. So let's talk about that, guys. Let's talk about why, with all that being said, knowing all of this, why would New York still elect a Mundami? Well, the first thing I want to say is we no longer have the protections of our dreams, of the American philosophy, of the American dream. The American dream, for all intents and purposes, is dead. And with that, it makes us vulnerable to people who offer substitutes, free housing, free transportation, free groceries. The American way has always been to have your family, have your house, get your job, your car, your white picket fence. That's what everybody used to try to attain. But over time, that's become unfashionable. That's become passe. And those things aren't valued anymore. We could talk about the reasons why, but let's just say that with the feminization of America, a lot of our patriarchal institutions, such as marriage, such as family, those things are dying out as we become more feminized. Another thing I think is happening is that we've lost our sense of community. We used to all band together during trying times. We didn't look to the government first. The government eventually might have made its way there or not, but that wasn't what held people together. What held people together was that sense of community. When things went wrong, you went to your neighbors, you went to your family, you didn't go to government. And if the rich in your community, they all chipped in. And that was the way it was. But socialism's appeal is that that's not reliable. The socialists came in and said, why are we begging, the rich person for their resources when we can just take it ourselves through the government? So it became unnecessary to expect charity when you can just have the government do it. I think another reason is just our respect for religion has made us really, really vulnerable. We no longer respect religion. We no longer have religious values the way we did. Faith, we had faith-based policies in the past. And what those faith-based policies did was they say, here's a setup, here's a foundation, here's an opportunity, and you take it from there. And we have faith in you. Divinity will step in and things will eventually make their way to a happy place. But with the left ideology, we've totally removed religion. So if we're with the American dream being dead, our sense of community being dead, our respect for religion no longer being there, the politicians, they saw this void. They see how vulnerable we are because we no longer believe, we're no longer optimistic. So they prey on that pessimism. And they try to get us to believe a false optimism when really what they're doing is they're preying on our pessimism. And this is what causes societies to eventually give up everything they have for the hope of socialism. That, and if you look at the results of the other night, a lot of men are moving away from politics altogether. There was a low male turnout on both sides. So with men turning off to politics, you got mostly women now that make up a large majority of the electorate. And women, by their maternal nature, by their desire to always want to protect the weak, that gets exploited, and they vote for socialism. They vote for authoritarianism. Their instincts tell them that it's all or nothing. So they don't have a problem with voting with the most extreme socialist candidates because this is where the most promises are made. And this is where now the woman, and through her maternal instinct, is free to care for her young or care for the disadvantaged. And government's a partner in that. So it's understandable why women choose to vote liberal and vote socialism. But what we got to do, guys, is now recognize it and maybe understand that there's been an overcorrection and see how we can get back to a little bit more of a level playing field. Because if we don't, we're just going to continue to elect more of these socialists. And eventually you're going to run out of, as Margaret Thatcher once said, you eventually run out of other people's money. So that's one thing we got to really take heed of, guys, is that these socialists are starting from the billionaires. They're going to drain the billionaires, run them all off, then head for the millionaires, drain them, run them all off, then come for the 100,000aires, drain them, run them all off, and then eventually they'll be down to you. And you'll be the last, but you'll be just as gone as all the other classes. So let's get back to an America that worked for itself, that didn't need to rely on the government, that had a sense of community, that believed in an American dream, that went to church every so often, that kept a spiritual center. And I think that way you become a lot less vulnerable to socialism and electing authoritarianism to rule you versus a representative to represent you. And so that's just the crucial difference, guys. I wanted to make note of that. And that's all I got on this one. Guys, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Let's see if we can get this thing up to 50 subscribers by the end of the week. Let's keep pushing. Again, if you want commentary that's like this, that's positive, that's eye-opening, that gives you a larger context than just the regular right and left fight, guys, check out the Pro-America Perspective. All right, guys, well, I'll see you all in the next video. I'll take it easy.